I learned a hell of a lot more from watching his failures, which were very constant. And I think most of us in business probably fail forward. It's like you trip, at least you moved forward a little bit, right? And but you fell on your face, but you moved forward.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that was really, I wouldn't be here right now had it not been for his failures way more than his successes.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's really interesting that a lot of people, they see successful business owners and they don't see the failures that you had. I mean, I've had multiple failures over the years, right? And I tell everybody here, you take that failure and you learn from it, right? And just figure out what you did wrong and do it better the next time. And there's no perfect.
Starting your route to retirement.
Welcome to the Guided Retirement Show. I'm your host, Dean Barber. Our goal, every single episode that we put out here on the Guided Retirement Show, is to give you more education to help you make smarter decisions. Now, today, we have the opportunity of interviewing a father-son duo. I'll call them serial entrepreneurs. Both of these guys have had multiple failures, and both of these guys have had some amazing successes. And I want you to really pay attention to what these gentlemen are talking about. It's Jan and Adam Fitchman, and Jan owns a company in Kansas City called Seventh Heaven. I think he's been in business for 47 years. Adam was one of the first guys to develop technology that allowed videos to get to your cell phones all the way back in the early 2000s. He now owns a company called Lifted Logic that is a web development company. This is a fascinating conversation. I had a blast with this interview, and I'm sure you're going to love every minute of it. Here are Jan and Adam Fitchman. Guys, thanks so much for braving the COVID-19, coming in to spend some time with me and obviously all of our listeners here on the Guided Retirement Show. We've got Jan and Adam Fitchman, and you guys both have some really unique stories, both self-made, both entrepreneurial in spirit, and a little bit different paths on how you got there and what you did. Jan, let's start with you since we'll give the age before beauty thing here.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and by the way, the masks are because you've got some immunocompromised conditions, right?
I'm taking the utmost protection.
Good for you.
We're all both smiling under here. I don't know if you can tell from our eyes.
Smiling, and my wife and I happen to be living with Adam and my daughter-in-law and my two little grandkids, so we certainly want to make sure that everybody's protected.
Yeah, he had like an infusion therapy last week that just basically kills his immune system. So.
Yeah, so you would be very susceptible.
Yeah.
All right, so
definitely smiling. I'm sure the camera, it's hard to see.
That's awesome. All right, well, I can see it in your eyes. Yeah. I can see it in your eyes. So, Jan, you own a retail store called Seventh Heaven.
Yes.
All right, so take me back to how did you come up with the idea to start Seventh Heaven, and what was that like when you began?
Well, I wish I could say it was a grand idea that I had in high school to do this, but in reality, I really wanted to go to med school. And so when I got out of Center High School in 1970, I tried to get into the 6-year med school program at UMKC. And I made the final 36, but I didn't make the final 9 or 10 kids. So I took a lot of science and math courses at UMKC for a couple of years. And then my cousin, who was my hero, had graduated and went on to dental school, had called me up and said, how would you like to make some money this summer? And I had been working at Pinky's Ben Franklin at Ranch Mart for a number of years as a stock boy, and I really did enjoy the job. And so I quit, and I spent the summer selling 8-track tapes at state fairs.
Interesting.
Yes.
There may be some people listening that don't even know what an 8-track tape is.
Probably not, but it was just part of the history of how music is conveyed to our ears. And so we did that for the summer, and I oversaw my cousin's 2 guys, and it was my brother and I on the midway of the state fairs next to all the carnies. And we were making really good money. And at the end of the summer, I thought, hell, I don't really want to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Because all you do is listen to people complain all day. So I kind of had an epiphany and said, I'm not going back. And my mom said, well, all I want you to be is happy. So she goes, if you want to go back to school, you'll go back to school. My cousin quit dental school. Now, his parents were not quite as thrilled at all. And he had more money than I did. So he ended up getting a warehouse off of 39th and Main. And I started just hustling in the urban core. We sold to gas stations, little bitty record stores, and I ended up having accounts that were from Kansas City to St. Louis.
Wow.
And so it just kind of built it up, and it was really pretty easy. And then, of course, with the bootleg 8-tracks, sooner or later they decided to change the copyright laws and put all the bootleg guys out of business. And so we opened up a store, and kind of at the behest of a cousin in California. And so we opened up one of these little hippie stores, which I had no idea what any of this was, but we carried used jeans and smoking accessories and turquoise jewelry and record albums, and just kind of grew from there.
So how has the innovation of technology changed your business?
Well, when it comes to the music side of it, physical product isn't really desirable because it's not portable. And today people can listen on their cell phones, they can stream it in their car, they can have it anytime, any place. So we still do sell some CDs because not everybody is capable or wanting to learn how to stream, but we're back selling vinyl again because it's
that's the in
a
vogue
very
thing
tactile,
now, right?
cool thing to do.
Yeah.
So we're into that in a very big way.
I've got a son who's totally into the vinyl collections, right? So that's a big deal for you.
It's a big deal. Very little money on it. The new music margins are just razor thin, and we do it razor thin on purpose because we want people to make a journey to the store.
Interesting. Okay, so Adam, here's your dad who is showing you, hey, here's how you can make all this money, right? Come join me, work alongside me, and you said I got some different ideas.
Yeah.
So tell your story. Your story's fascinating, and start from your early college years.
Yeah, well, I was even gonna comment on that. We were talking about this on the way over here. The dynamic changes in which a small business can, but largely has to make over the longevity of 50 years. And so kind of, I think what got me into a lot of what I did was I learned a hell of a lot more from watching his failures, which were very constant. And I think most of us in business probably fail forward. It's like you trip, at least you moved forward a little bit, right? And but you fell on your face, but you moved forward.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that was really, I wouldn't be here right now had it not been for his failures way more than his successes.
I'm glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that a lot of people, they see successful business owners and they don't see the failures that you had. I mean, I've had multiple failures over the years, right? And I tell everybody here, you take that failure and you learn from it, right?
Right.
And just figure out what you did wrong and do it better the next time. And there's no perfect.
Right. No, I mean, I'd watch him come home. My mom definitely, was very much more attentive to the failures than I saw them wear on him. And for me, that was largely how I got to where I got to. And so, the kind of the backstory on that, I started getting into computers when I was really young. He always was going through point of sale systems at the store. And so here was a broken 286 and a broken 14K modem, and I'd have to fix it and then get online on the bulletin board systems back in the day. And then I started getting into, programming. I wouldn't say I was a great programmer, but I was into it, and I enjoyed having that. I'd struggled a little bit with school, and I never really learned how to learn. And so I realized, through that journey, I found something that I really enjoyed in technology. So in college in 2003, my girlfriend at the time, wife now, had just gotten a pre-release of the video scroll wheel iPod, and we were trying to drag a video of our dogs onto it. And I drag it into iTunes. It said incompatible format. And so me and a couple buddies that were also into computers said, well, why don't we just make a website that you can upload a video to? It'll convert the video into iPod format, and we can download it and put it on the iPod. It ended up growing into about 20 million users a month.
Wow.
It was one of YouTube's larger competitors. And we were fortunate enough, we got our provisional patents in really early, thanks to Hovey Williams here in Kansas City, and we ended up being the first company to send a video from the internet to a cell phone.
That's amazing.
We were kind of talking earlier about luck. I think that we largely created our own success. So if you want to call success luck, I guess you can use it interchangeably, right?
I don't think it's possible. Right?
They're synonymous, right? We had to go create what we
Right.
we were $2 million in debt to our hosting company. And I just remember thinking through that, mentioning on his failures, well, you know what, I have to believe in myself and I have to keep failing forward. So you know what? I had to.
Okay, so hold your thought. I got to get your dad's reaction. What was going through your
That
mind?
was a good phone call.
What was going through your mind when your son's out here trying to do something that you probably don't even know what he's talking about, and he's $2 million in debt? You got to be thinking, oh my God, what is happening? What were you thinking?
I'm not sure I was really too worried about it. I mean, that's just, failure is, baseball players fail 70% of the time. Then they go up to the plate and they make $10 million and they fail 70% of the time. So,
Good point.
That's what I always use. You don't have to, be successful all the time. You just have to be successful at the right time and take advantage and exploit it. And, so, with Adam, we got kind of involved, and we knew the attorneys, and so we connected this kid up, and I think this was so early on that nobody that was in their 40s understood what the hell he was even talking about.
Yeah, the attorneys had no idea. They were IP attorneys, and they had they're like, we don't know what the hell we don't know what's happening.
But everybody wants to be on the cutting edge, even if you don't know what to do. I used to call him up at school, and I wanted to attach something to an email, and I'd call him up, and he goes, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, how did you tell me to attach that thing to an email?" He's like, "God dang it! I told you. How many times have I told you how to do this?" And blah blah blah. I said, "Well, gee, I didn't grow up with this stuff, And that was just early on, but all these young kids got it.
Well, I mean, I remember even at that time. I mean, not to embarrass him. I don't think he can quite get embarrassed, but through our childhood, we saw ebbs and flows of both doing well and then really. I mean, there was times when we were not doing well, and during that time was one of the times when they at the store were not doing well. There was some consolidations in the store. They were struggling hard.
Embezzlements.
I mean, it was rough. Don't know where you're going to make your next house payment, or if you can, or if you're going to get kicked out, or how you're going to make your car payments. And so I was watching them and his attitude towards that during the same time. I knew he couldn't financially help me, even though he wanted to. He had nothing to be able to help me with. And I knew, well, he's not doing well, and he's still hustling and trying and going to work and pushing forward through this horrible situation. Well, I can too. I mean, why not? I mean, so it's a little bit of money that I owe. I didn't even think. I remember calling him I think he goes, well, you've been so successful, you're going to go out of business. So congrats. He's like, you succeeded to fail. So great job, Adam. I'm like, well, shit, what do I do? He's like, I don't know.
So what did you do? Where were you? You had the $2 million in debt.
Dude, it was interesting. So I cashed out. My grandfather had a little bond that was $2,500, and I think that was all the money I had. I cashed it in. I flew out to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and I just said, all right, I need to start reaching out to I need connections. I need somebody. We have this technology, and we have this thing that is worth something, and we know it is. We just need to find people that need this same thing. And so I met a few people while we were out at that trade show, and one of them, there's a few connections actually. The guy that owned National Lampoons, I met him at a Kinko's at 2:00 in the morning. We were printing stickers out to label all of the magazines so we could pretend we sponsored CES, because that was our last $100. So we're sticking them on there at 2 in the morning. And it just started kind of naturally growing out from there. We were out in LA a lot. We got connected with a lot of the startups there and got some penetration there. And then largely we connected with Sprint, some of the carriers, and Verizon, and said, hey, let's license you guys this software to sell more data plans. How do you sell a mom, a data plan back then on a Trio?
What year was this? Where was this?
Oh man, this is 04, 05.
Okay.
So, the only device, I mean, we were pushing videos to Razr phones and Sidekicks and Trio 600s, the old brick Game Boy phones. And it was really by accident that we found the phone piece of it, but that was really what dug us out. It wasn't for the iPods, it was the phones. And, you think growing up, hundreds of millions of dollars will bring you joy in your life. And I think most people would try and argue about it. And then you realize pretty quickly, and even being out in LA with people with, ridiculous amounts of wealth, we're all chasing purpose more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny when we were talking earlier about retirement, why a lot of us small business owners, our purpose is our work. It's not necessarily the money. And I didn't have that anymore.
Yeah.
So
you sold.
No, we ended up, we retained it and we just licensed everything.
Yeah.
So we never even ended up selling. We just ran it until it had no more licensing partners. And during that same time, towards the end, I didn't want to retire. I wanted to keep working. And so I started Lifted Logic up, which is what I do now. And I just couldn't imagine not working. Literally, we were just talking about this in the car.
But you were in a position financially that you could have done nothing.
Yeah. And I still am right now.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot. I could just go move to an island somewhere and disappear and raise my kids and bring my parents with me. But it sounds pretty boring.
Yeah, so a lot of people say, well, Adam, you got lucky.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like a luck story to me.
No.
It sounds to me like you had a lot of sacrifice. But the most important thing that you had was vision. Right?
Right.
And I think that comes from your dad, Jan. I mean, look at the vision that you had, right? Okay, so, and your cousin that dropped out of dental school.
Yeah, and my cousin that dropped out of dental school built his business up with truck stops, selling music in truck stops. And back in those days, truckers liked to listen to comedy. Well, everybody likes to listen to comedy. So he thought, well, man, maybe I ought to start my own truck stop comedy label. So, because he was not a very happy guy because of his parents. So he would go to a lot of comedy clubs. And that's where the inspiration came. He thought, well, heck, I know what a good comedian is, and I know what these truck drivers will buy. So he started recording guys, and he said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you, $25,000, but I record 3 of your performances. I own everything outright. You give up any and all rights to that. Okay, so they had to sign the paperwork. And he knew he had to have a lawyer and draw up the paperwork and do it right. Well, he did that 6 times with a guy by the name of Jeff Foxworthy. And he's got about, Arnie is, he's about 72. Wait, I think 72 going on 73. And still recording comedians and has a stable of, 80, 90 different comedians. And now the physical product is no longer viable, but he makes, some money off of his downloads and streaming and licensing. And again, he had the vision to come up with these ideas.
Yeah.
And I think, my father was an entrepreneur. He was in the used car business for many, many years. And it was just something that, he was in the family, on the other side of the family, they're the rich ones because they had new car dealerships. But my dad was the poor one and had the used car lot. But we could see from my dad his vision, and he worked hard, and it was very tough. We were struggling middle class, and if you didn't sell a car, then you didn't have money for groceries. But thank God Grandma did. So
yeah.
Do you think the commonality between all of us is we're basically unhirable as a family?
Probably.
Like I don't think that any of us.
I'd still be a stock boy at Pinky's Ben Franklin.
I don't know if any of us would actually be hired by anyone at this point. I think we'd probably make it a week and then we'd be. I don't know. I don't know if that's the same for you. Like, do you think you'd still be hireable as you kind of go out?
No way.
Well, it's hard to keep your mouth shut at this point.
No way, because exactly right. I mean, because I know what I want, and I'm seeing out 10, 15 years into the future, with every decision that I make as the CEO here at Barber Financial Group and the founder of it, and a lot of times the things that I'm thinking of that I'm seeing to the future, nobody else sees that stuff, right?
Right.
And so I make decisions that people are like, why are we doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Well, it will.
Right.
It will. But it doesn't always work, right? Some of the ideas that I have aren't always the right ideas. But I have a whole head full of them, and I know that you guys do too. And that's the interesting thing. But you're acting on that, and I think The reason that I really thought it would be interesting to interview the two of you was not just your story about your success, your failures, your dedication, the time that you spent, the sacrifices from family time, Jan, that you had to have, especially in that retail world. Adam, you don't have to have that now in your world, which you're blessed to have that. But I think there's a similarity to the mindset that I see in successful entrepreneurs and successful CEOs or business owners to the successful mindset that I see in people who actually achieve their financial independence and can live their life for the reason that they want to, right? Mm-hmm. They may have some passion that's outside of work that's not going to generate income, which is really what drives them, is what they want to do. And the people that have that and they sacrifice and they save, they live below their means, mm-hmm. and they're planning for the future just the same way that a successful CEO or a successful business owner is planning for the future. And so, mm-hmm. We hear it all the time. Oh, Joe, he got lucky, man. Look at him. He's retired. He's sitting nice, 55, 60 years old. He can do whatever he wants to do. Him and his wife are traveling the world. Boy, he got lucky. Well, he didn't, right? Right. There's no such thing as luck. Luck defined is when opportunity and hard work come together, right?
Right.
That's when those two meet.
And I think people have to define what success is.
Absolutely.
It's and Adam and I were just talking about when we were walking in, and I said, well, I was never driven by the money part of it. I obviously wanted to make as much money as I possibly could, but it was coming up with visions mm-hmm. that paid off down the road, because I thought, it's like at one point in time, I mean, we were, our whole business revolves around music and the lifestyle in music. So it's taken us to futons and modern furniture. Why? Well, we had 10,000 square foot store on 4 levels. And I thought, well, but this kind of fits into the lifestyle of the young people that buy music, that are living in apartments, and the furniture and the coolness and all, so we try to just do that. And today it's a lot more difficult. And we made a decision a couple of years ago that we had to shrink the store, because today's young people don't get as big a kick out of a lava lamp and a strobe light as their age group did 20 years ago. Right. I mean, it's technology. Do you think too,
I mean, it seemed like, you're, and I don't even know how I, don't think I even noticed it, but it kind of sunk in, it seemed like you were always really quick to accept your failures and remember your successes.
Yes.
It wasn't like you forgot your failures. I mean, I remember we brought in Boost Mobile and trying different things and realizing that it failed miserably, and there was never a shameful attitude towards it, I guess.
No. I try to leave my ego. Hopefully I just don't have much of an ego, I guess. But it's like I used to tell my buyers, it's okay. I want you to screw up, because if you're not doing and buying badly sometimes, it means you're not trying to think outside the box.
Right.
And I think that's, big box stores stay within the box. I mean, there's not, merry-go-round is a great example. It was a big rock and roller type of store back in the 80s and 90s. And they bet the boat on bell-bottom jeans, okay? They did an entire summers or a whole period on bell-bottoms.
And that was in the 80s.
Yes.
Too late.
And it failed.
Yeah.
Well, they thought it was going to make a comeback.
Yeah.
So they bet the boat on it. And they had 600, 700, 800 stores. And the problem is, when you buy millions of dollars worth of a fashion product and nobody wants that fashion, well, what do you do with it? You can't even sell it for $3. Nobody wants to be seen in that stuff. And the company failed. So you have to be careful not to bet the house on it. But our failures, every time we've failed miserably,
but you know what, I gotta say,
we've always worked.
Sometimes you did bet the house on it. I mean, there were definitely years where the house financed decisions. I mean, how the hell did you know, okay, this decision I should bet the house on? And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs, at some point either took a second on their house for their, and like sometimes it worked, but how did you know? So when you say that, how did you know which ones, when to bet the house on it?
Well, because our greatest failures came from outside influences, not from inside bad decisions.
But how did you even, like, I guess I don't know what made me feel okay with having that debt. I mean, other than knowing that I had to believe in myself, but how did you know when those decisions would come through where...
I think it's just...
Was it gut?
I use a lot of gut.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, this is what I do. And so
50
you
years,
have to have
right?
it's 47 years plus the 2 years on the carnival trails,
Yeah.
but in our hustling. But it's really, I think, just being able to, well, first of all, you have to understand your audience. Adam many years ago, being a rock star was probably one of his big deals. And so he was at Illinois Wesleyan in Bloomington, Illinois. So it was parents' weekend, but they were having a talent show like on Friday. He says, come down to the talent show because me and these guys, we're going to play. Okay.
Yeah.
So this school is like, it's like Blue Valley North. It's, more affluent, pretty white kids. And so Adam and his guys, they're doing Back in Black. And so they do their performance of Back in Black, and they hear that little bitty clapping like this. No whooping and hollering and everything. Then the guy that follows them does the Macarena, and the house goes nuts. And I said, well, Adam, the reality of it is you have to play to your audience. This was not a Back in Black audience. This was not an AC/DC group.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they were not.
So that's what we've always tried to do is, we know our target audience.
But Adam's
really
not
well.
a Macarena kind of guy
No,
either.
You might be dancing to it, but not performing it. But no. And I think that's what and Adam has really helped me a lot in teaching me some critical thinking skills in the way that we did our marketing. And we set up a system to track a lot of our traffic, who they were, and all this kind of stuff, and helped us come up with these numbers to see the effectiveness of our marketing with radio stations. And I'm not going to name who it is, but there were major 18 to 36 audience. The music defines the psychographics of the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
If you're listening to 99.7, that's different if you're listening to 98.9. They all may be 18 to 36 heavy, but the mental psychographics are different. Okay, so we get that, and so we did a huge promotion, and we proved to ourselves that the amount of money, the acquisition cost, was too much.
Yeah, so your cost to acquire new business was too much.
Exactly.
All right, so where does Adam come in on this? Because let's skip from your development of how to get videos to cell phones and all that to what you're doing today. The company is called Lifted Logic, and what was your idea behind Lifted Logic, and how did that flow into what your dad's talking about here?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I got to work when Facebook was starting really early. There was about 9 people there, and it was a really small knit circle back then. After the first .com crash, there wasn't a lot of us kind of getting in there, and so started getting into with talking with them on how do you look at assets of users. Why is a pregnant woman on Facebook worth more than a non-pregnant woman? Why was she buying more in that 9 months? What was the amount she was buying? What type of products? How much was that worth to the company to be able to put that product in front of a pregnant woman? Where we decided that we kind of saw things differently was the conversations would shift into how do we convince somebody to get pregnant, right? And so largely, there's a reason I haven't been on social media, and I'm in the digital world for 10 years. Longer than that, 14 years. So I have no social media. I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't. Largely our company may have it, but I don't track things that don't have value. Largely the marketing world is based on emotion and all of these non-measurable things that everybody's trying to put out there. And I came back to the fact that I grew up in retail. I looked at inventory turns. I looked at velocity of sales. I looked at metrics because that was what we all needed to make. And so I'd find myself in these conversations where we would talk about, Facebook likes, and the company's like, well, oh my God, we killed it. We got 10,000 Facebook likes overnight. And you're like, great. How many products did you sell? And they're like, well, none. And I'm like, well, then that's awful. Who cares?
Right.
Like, if I can't give my employee a bonus of Facebook likes for Christmas, then I probably shouldn't be measuring it. Like, they would all be pissed. Be like, here's your bonus this year. It's 1,000 Facebook likes. They'd be like, where's my money? Where's the check? Right? It's like, it's laughable, but we do that as business owners, right? We're like, well, we better get it. So I just wanted to build a company that wasn't sales focused. There's 30 of us, and we do high-end web development, videography, photo, design, and dev. We do everything in-house, and we hand pick all of our clients. We have almost 4 years of work booked out and no salespeople. And we bill almost 1,000 clients a year. It's a weird agency. We just kind of interview our clients, and then if we like them, we'll work with them.
So are you working with Seventh Heaven?
We are.
Do you like your dad?
Oh, dude, you know what?
Probably their worst client.
I may plead the fifth on the enjoyment of working with him as a client. It's funny. I was gonna say we ended up. I bet most people, when they see us walking into a room, and if you had to guess on how we approach business and financials and looking at things, we are way drastically different, and most people are going to guess it very wrong. I think that it's a good reason why people like you exist, because we all as business owners need mentors in areas that we don't succeed in.
Correct.
I mean, like, Jesus, and being able to see the differences between us. We all want to get to the same place, but like we have this vastly different approach towards it. I think it's probably why we clicked, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are incredible. He is way more debt accepting. He's willing to leverage debt and utilize borrowing and loans and, putting it out there. And maybe when I was younger, I mean, I'm still not that old, but when I was in my 20s, sure. I am a very cash heavy individual. And we go at it a lot. I'm very much like...
Of course, he has no inventory, and,
I got employees. Yeah. I got labor, but no, he's willing to get into debt and do creative things and take that risk. And I am most of my money's in like CDs, which is crazy. You get what, 1% now. So thankfully older, but like my money largely sits way less invested than I think most people. I don't want to have that anymore in my life. He, on the other hand, and people look at me and like, oh yeah, I'm sure I'm way more conservative than he is by a lot.
You wouldn't think that just by looking at the two of you.
No,
probably not.
No, they'd be saying, yeah, he's probably. I am super to probably the extreme.
But even I knew that the business we were in, there were possibilities of interruptions from various sources, throughout the years, and just cyclical, financials. We have to worry about recessions too, and so we were able to get into some real estate with a very small amount of money down, and I knew this was going to be, that's my savings. I didn't like the stock market, don't know anything about it, I don't want to follow it, I don't want to look at the charts, I'm more of the least amount of money I can put into something and then let somebody else make payments for me, seemed to me in the long run the way to accumulate more net worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at this point, we both own millions and millions of dollars of real estate that he's okay with having them pay. I buy cash. I don't want a mortgage. I don't want a loan. I don't want to deal with it.
So it's interesting. We just did a show on my radio show where we talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly of debt, right? So I'll give you my analogy. Jan, you'll appreciate this. So debt on real estate can actually be good, but at times it can be bad, and sometimes it can be downright ugly, right? So let's just say that today you really can't do this anymore because of a lot of the banking laws that changed after the Great Recession. But it used to be you could go into a business property, a rental property, whatever, put 5% down, put 10% down, and finance it for 30 years and have your people make the payments and life is good, right? So let's just use an example. Let's say we had $1 million property. We put $100,000 down. That property increases in value by 10%. You've just doubled your investment, right? Because you only had $100,000 of your own money in there, and now you got $200,000, right? So that leverage in that particular example, beautiful thing, right? But what happened in the Great Recession was that people freaked out over the dot-com bubble, stopped buying stocks, and started buying real estate.
It drove up.
Okay, so remember these ads. If you own a home, we'll loan you up to 120% of the value of your home, right?
Right.
And I knew the day that I picked up the newspaper, this was back when I was still reading, the physical newspaper in mid-2007, I pick up a newspaper and there's a full page ad in there that you get a free BMW with the purchase of a Pulte home. And I'm like, oh my God, it's over. This is it. The mania has gone nuts. And that's when I decided that it was time to get out of the stock market, right? Because there was no way that this whole debt situation was going to end anything other than horribly ugly. And so what happened was, as people started failing on their subprime loans, that leaked into a prime loan crisis because you had defaults, people being forced to sell. So all of a sudden now there's more sellers, wannabe sellers, than there are willing buyers. Mm-hmm. And so you push the price down of this real estate. So if we reverse that thing and say, you know what, I got $100,000 down, if that property decreases in value by just 10%, you've lost 100% of your money, right? If it decreases by 20%, now you've lost 100% more than what you put in. Yeah. And so that's what was happening. And there were so many of those loans that were out there that were like these 5-year balloons, especially in the residential real estate market. It'd be let's do a 5-year balloon and do an interest-only loan, and those things start coming due, and you got to refinance, and they're doing a reappraisal of the house. Your $1 million property isn't worth $1 million anymore. Guess what? It's worth $600,000. And, we're only going to loan 70% of the value of that house. So now you're going to lose everything that you put in and more, or you're going to have to come up with a bunch of cash to put in to keep that property.
Yeah. You know what? It's awesome listening to you. Like, one of the biggest things as an entrepreneur, I'm sure this is the same when you deal with just, people with money, is you're your best asset when you're starting, right? Like, you are the expert and you know it, and then it somehow evolves into you are the worst asset you have in making those decisions.
You got to hire other people to do it.
That's what I was going to say. People like me, I think that's what is nice about, knowing people like you, is that eventually we have become our own worst assets, and having somebody that can look at both of our situations and still see, like the truth and the success from both of those. I don't think enough people rely on, again, we all go and read, and we don't rely enough on experts that are doing and have the knowledge base built in and the passion for their industry like we do for ours. So, well,
and I think, and kind of to your point, it was either Vanderbilt or one of the wealthy, Carnegie or somebody back at the, wealthy scions of the day, and came through the Depression with all their money. And so they had asked this particular gentleman, how did he know to make, that decision? He was, so brilliant. And he said, whichever way the masses are running, run as fast as you can the opposite way.
Right.
Because in reality, and this is somewhat systemic, is people get hooked into this stuff. The financing crisis. I had a friend that was in the mortgage business, and he said he'd get a call on Monday, and they said, "Hey, Joe, we need you to loan $5 million out this week, and here's what we want you to do: don't fax the stuff to Larry, fax it to Willie, okay, and he'll take care of you." And so what that says is, and what everybody knows, maybe not outright, is they said, just find some bodies. Because we're going to sell, we got all this money from the Middle East coming in, and it's got to find a home. So out of 100 loans, we know these 5 or 10 are not going to be good, but hell, nobody's ever going to notice them.
Right.
But the problem is the greed part of it. It's the greed that promotes all of this.
So there's two things, right? There's the fear and greed, right? Warren Buffett has a great quote. He goes, "You want to be fearful when others are greedy, and you want to be greedy when others are fearful," right? So that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Do the opposite. But when you think about the whole aspect of money, I think there's two types of money. There's the smart money, and then there's the dumb money. Okay, so here's what happens. So the smart money's in early, whether it's in real estate or whether it's in the stock market, right? Those are your two primary, or whether it's in an asset like gold, crypto, right? The smart money's in early. When the people that have made the big profits want to get out, they have to sell the fact that this is still great and look at what you've missed out on to lure the masses or the dumb money into the purchase. Okay. Think about the dot-com bubble. It was an absolute 100% perfect example. You had the technology heavy NASDAQ index up 100% for 2 years in a row. All right. And almost all of the money, like 95% of the money that went into the NASDAQ index came in the fourth quarter of 1999 at the end of the game, right? And then the NASDAQ subsequently lost 70% over the next 3 years. Well, what happened? The smart money wanted out, so they had to convince the dumb money to come in and buy. Look at what you're missing. Brick and mortars is gone. It's all about tech. If you're not putting your money here, you're stupid, right? Well, they had to sell, right? And you got to remember, in whatever market we're in, for every wannabe seller, there has to be a willing buyer.
Exactly.
And so if you can follow what the smart money is doing and understand, because you get that, you start hearing that narrative, right? And when the smart people already owned real estate and they wanted to start getting out, what'd they have to do?
Convince
They
somebody.
had to convince everybody else to buy, because you got to get somebody to buy your stuff, right? And so I think that if people could learn the difference between the smart money and the dumb money and really understand what to look for, you can make a huge difference in your decision-making process and come out on the right side of it more times than not.
And then the dumb money becomes smart money.
I was gonna say, what happens? Yeah, what happens when the smart money ends up, overwhelming? Is there still that fine balance that you need in that structure to have some of that dumb money still there, or how?
The dumb money will stay until it's because why? Okay, so Wall Street teaches you that you never sell, right?
Long term.
It's you got to take the long term approach. Well, if you bought into this and it's down 70%, you don't want to sell it now. Or it's down 50%, don't sell now. No, you should have sold a long time ago, right? You got valuations that make no sense. Walkyourdog.com is, selling for multiple billions of dollars. Well, they don't even have any money. They've never made a profit, but they had the .com behind their name, and they incorporated and they sold shares and they went public, and people are like, oh yeah, let's buy. Well, who made the money?
I think we're working on that with TikTok right now.
Yeah.
I think we're literally watching that happen. A Chinese tracking application being sold with no revenue stream for Microsoft's going to pay how much?
Let's talk about your knowledge of TikTok and what they're doing here.
Yeah, it was one of the only apps that I had installed. I had an employee that fell in love with it. Oh, right in the early days.
Well, it's only been around 3 years,
Yeah.
right? 2017.
That's a long time in the tech world, right? Like that's forever. And so he downloaded it and started using it and sending me a lot of the. I have a hard time. So I'm the oldest one at my company. I'm 35. The rest of the 30 employees are younger than me. So I still try and understand what they're chasing through these applications, right? And for me, I still have to obviously understand, what is this and how, but they're just recycling the exact same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah,
right?
what gives it a $50 billion value that Microsoft would want to buy? Why?
You know what? I mean, I think that largely it's users. That's it. So the same thing we were kind of talking about with Facebook.
It's an audience?
It's an audience. It's a delivery medium for ads. That's it. They can split these, like what he's talking about with his psychographics on the radio. They can pinpoint down. Okay, you know what? I guess we can even take it back. When people say, "Hey, man, you hate social media,"
Yeah.
why do you tell most businesses to not do this? The first question I'll ask, I'll say, okay, so let's talk about Jim Johnson, the big plumber in Kansas City. We're just going to use them as an example. I'm sure we can all apply whatever big plumber we want in there. So if I asked you, so Dean, all right, let's say you use Facebook. I don't know if you do or you don't, but let's say you're on Facebook. Who's one of your favorite bands?
AC/DC, man. Back in Black.
So let's say that everybody's still alive.
I would have cheered for you.
Yeah, there you go. So, okay, you get on Facebook. Everybody's still alive in AC/DC. And they are coming to Kansas City. $10 tickets. 100-person venue. There's no such thing as COVID in this example. 100-person venue. Here's the ticket to buy. I imagine, are you going to click on that and buy that ticket?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Jim the plumber, sitting in my office, saying, I got the best social media campaign ever. Probably not, but tell me about it. Adam, I am going to do a $99 main drain clean out. It's going to kill it. It's going to fail miserably. Dude,
why did he think it was going to kill it?
Because he goes, you know what? $99, Adam, I am basically paying them to come to their house. I'm losing money. Do you know what? This is like a $300 thing. I'm doing it for $99. This is going to kill it. It's amazing. We all sit there, whether we work at a company, own a company, or look at ourselves like this, right? Like, everybody believes they are the equivalent of that rock band. Of course, who wouldn't buy this? Of course, who wouldn't use it? Who wouldn't buy this on social media? It's such a good deal, and you're like, dude, that's awful.
That reminds me of somebody that wants to try to prepare their own taxes.
You know what? That.
I can do this for free.
Oh yeah, I can.
Free is expensive sometimes.
Free is very expensive sometimes. Okay, so continue with your example.
So that isolation, right, and realizing everybody believes, and they hear you have to do social media, so they become these massively primed marketing dumps of money, right? Every single business, at least some point in time of me working with Adam, so I need to do social media, right? No, you don't. No, probably not. But that's what we've been told, and so we're seeing billions and billions of dollars being dumped into a system that's not being measured on the outcomes.
But do you think that the reason why that is happening has to do with the streaming technology on television and the DVRs and everything, to where, what was this massive marketing medium on television is virtually, I don't watch a commercial on TV. I refuse to watch any television show where I've got to sit through the commercials. I'll either do it, I'll DVR it, and I'll watch it an hour later so I can skip through the commercials. I don't want to see all the ads, right?
Right.
And
I think it's this attitude shift where every tech startup now has gotten into this strategy of ad paying out their income, right? Like, I'm going to sell a bunch of ads. I'm going to start a flashlight app and I'm going to sell ads. And realizing that there's people out there that are still, again, I kind of see this like I do that when you're talking about subprime mortgage, like it's this movement and shift towards everybody being convinced now that they need to dump this money into advertising, when largely we're over advertised to, and they become less and less effective the more saturation it is.
Well, they get my wife, and she's not pregnant.
Man.
Our fifth one just finally went off to college. So, she's buying stuff all the time from this. Well, where did you forget about? Oh, it was on an ad on Instagram, or it was an ad on.
Well, people love buying things. I think that's where it comes down to.
Makes us feel good.
People love buying things, but we hate being sold to, right? Like that's the ultimate crux of marketing, is that everybody wants to buy shit, but nobody wants to feel like a sucker.
Right?
Like, I want to think that I went into that store and I picked these jeans out because I like them. Not because the store knew to put them on a mannequin right out in the front, and when I walked by, they were basically advertising it. Social media has just gotten to this, there's no limit to the inventory, so it's bottomless.
Yeah.
Like, they can deliver constantly, and I think people are seeing TikTok in that same way, right? Like, for those people that don't know, really the shift from the first .com to the second, this was a huge systemic shift in the internet that we were in the early days of. So the web 1.0 and the web 2.0. The web 2.0 became an adjective for a lot of things, style and all, but really what it meant was user aggregated content. Okay, so this was the shift. ComedyCentral.com, back in the first .com, they were producing their own content. Right? They would shove their own stuff out there. This is mine. Then some of these early web 2.0, that some of them like MySpace bridged the gap between both. We are only aggregates of the users in which using our service. If you take the users off of Facebook, what's left?
Nothing.
Nothing. Ads.
There's nothing there.
So-
Who are they going to advertise to?
So literally, that's what they're doing is they're buying this inventory. They're buying inventory of eyeballs. And that's what these numbers are, is what is the potential that we can shove ads in front of these eyeballs? And so it's just a math formula for them, right? If every single, view of an ad's worth 10 cents and I can put it in for 1 out of every 10 users, it's just this math formula that they run through, and that's how they kind of get to their valuations. And largely they're not making anything. It's just that they're buying off inventory that hasn't been sold yet.
Yeah.
And hopefully pennies on the dollar, but those pennies add up to billions really quickly on TikTok.
So,
and stuff,
so would that be a similar for people that maybe still don't understand the language you're speaking, Adam? Would that be similar to a radio station?
Yeah.
Right. The only thing they have is airtime, right?
Yep.
And they're counting on people listening, right? And so then they're selling ads on the radio, right?
And the listeners, again, when we go to buy time, we look at time spent listening on the station. So, years ago, before all the internet and everything, people would spend, say, 45 minutes average listening in the mornings.
Yep.
Maybe on their drive to work, or they get up in the morning, they turn on the radio, they're jamming to AC/DC and brushing their teeth and all this, get in the car, listen to Johnny Dare, go into work. Today, the time spent listening has dropped. The audience,
because I can Bluetooth right to my stereo when I get in the car.
Because now you don't have to listen to stuff you don't want to listen to.
I get to listen to exactly what I want to listen to, right?
Right.
And I got to be honest. Most of the time, I'm in my car. I'm listening to podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Right. So hopefully we got a lot of people that are listening to this podcast. But that's it. So now the ads that are in the podcast, I skip them.
You know what they're doing? Basically, the best way to picture this is there's a strip of highway that was really dead for a long time. Then a mall went in at the other end of the highway. Now a bunch more people are driving down that highway. And somebody looks at this and says, if I buy this strip of highway, I can put up 50 billboards that I could sell each billboard for $1,000 a month. I can buy the highway for, $100,000. So in 2 months of me having my billboards up, I'll have broken even selling it. It's literally the exact same thing that we've been dealing with in real life, just it's now gone digital, and that highway is infinite.
But the TikTok users are kids, right? So how are we? I mean,
The demographic is changing, though. So it was largely children in the beginning, but what happens is parents follow children, and so largely Facebook was an invite only for college kids when it started.
But isn't Facebook losing? It's not.
Facebook is declining in users and page views and length of visit, and Facebook has just gotten so damn big that they can own whoever their competitors are. That was the big Congress presentation, a couple weeks ago.
Right.
They're so big that they can just buy it. They'll just go buy the next thing.
Interesting.
So they can't ever really fail. I mean, it'd be really hard for them to fail at this point. Barring some security and other issues that could take them down. But
all right, so tell me, what did you do? What did you do for your dad's company, Seventh Heaven? And maybe we should get it from Jan first. What did we do? Did you understand when he started saying we can help you do more? And I'm assuming you're saying you're doing digital marketing, right?
Yeah.
Well, we fell into the same ideas as everybody else, is that we had to be on social media and do all this kind of stuff, and then they explained the whole fallacy of that to us. And so, we built out, or Adam's company built out a really nice website for us. You get an idea of who we are, what we carry. We did put up a shopping cart very rapidly during the COVID,
which I have fought for them against him putting e-commerce up for years.
And the reason is, part of it was it's not tied to our POS system, which is antiquated. So, of course, the one item that we had up and the item that we hadn't sold in 4 years, somebody online buys it, but ironically, the night before somebody bought it, so now we don't have it to sell. So we are updating. We're going to go and purchase a new POS system, which will plug right into Adam's website. But, again, listening to my son, he says, you don't want a whole bunch of stuff. Let's just focus on some stuff to blow out. So what's interesting right now, so I'm not going in, and I have always hired people that were smarter than me, because I ain't that smart. So I just found people that were much more organized to do the back end accounting work and whatever. I like music. I'm not into it like the guys that run my department. They live it, love it, know it, and everything. Same with all the other departments. I find people that are passionate about it, and then we train them, then we let them run with it. We help them make successful buys. We celebrate the successes, and we learn from the losses. And that allows me to, as the kids were growing up, when Adam was going to take his first strokes and swim, I was there with my camera. When, the other son was in a soccer game, I could be there. I wanted the most important thing, the business enabled me to be a better dad, hopefully.
Yeah.
And enjoy the kids, because that's really all. I don't think Warren Buffett on his deathbed is going to be talking about his favorite leverage buyout. I just don't think he is. And if that's where you're at, then that's really kind of a pathetic life.
If you think about it, Jan, when you get to your later years and you ask people if they have regrets, it's never that I didn't save enough or that I didn't. It's all the things that I should have done more with my family, right, or with the people that I care about, and that's where the regrets come from. And that's why we're doing the Guided Retirement Show here, because we want people to do the opposite of what Wall Street wants you to do. Wall Street wants to teach you to die rich, right? We want to teach people to be able to live rich, to be able to understand that they can have clarity and confidence and control of their overall financial picture. Why? By hiring smarter people than they are, right? Yep. You get a good CEO. That CEO is not going to pretend to be the CFO, right? That CEO is not going to pretend to be the chief legal counsel, right? That CEO is not going to pretend to be the chief tax person. No, you're going to hire somebody that knows how to do that. Yet for some reason, it's been ingrained in people's minds that you don't need these professionals, right? You can do all this stuff on your own. Why? Because all the data is online. Back when the whole .com thing was going on and the internet really started to become popular, people told me, Dean, you're not going to have a job anymore because everybody's going to be able to have all the information that they need to make their own decisions and do their own things, right? And quite the opposite has actually happened. People need me now more than ever because now we've got information overload. And how does this apply to my personal situation?
And there's so much BS out there.
Yes.
How do you, unless you're trained in a particular area, you don't know what's BS and you don't know what's the truth. I mean,
the best people that succeed are the ones that people don't see the people below them, right? Talk about Patrick Mahomes. He's got his coaches. He's got his dietitians. But nobody notices them, right? I think the more successful you get, the less you even see the people behind them, right? Like any good entrepreneur will say having somebody like you behind them is what allows them to be good at their job,
right? Because you got to focus on
be good at everything.
It's the infrastructure.
It is.
You're only as good as the infrastructure,
right.
And that's my father was in 13th Armored Black Hat Division under Patton, and he was at the end of the war when they were moving through France and Italy and into Germany, and he said he goes, yeah, they gave us these little white pills and we just kept driving. We're driving the tanks in half tracks. They're just moving. He said the reason we were successful in the war is because of our infrastructure. We could move what we needed to the troops on a timely basis. The Germans were in their summer coats in the middle of Russia during wintertime freezing to death because they didn't have their winter coats. So it's the same with the business. If you don't have the infrastructure, you can't do it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's
I think of it like this, and I tie this back to what we do. You don't my example of the CEO finding all these people to work for him, right? No CEO in their right mind is ever going to have a successful business if they try to fill all those shoes themselves, right? Yeah. And I think that
unless you want to stay a one-person operation,
yeah, but that's not success, right?
No.
It's not
right.
And it's not sustainable, right? It's like you're on a never-ending treadmill, right? One that you just can't get off of. You're going to wind up dying someday because you just wore yourself completely out. But I think that every individual is actually the CEO of their own finances. Yeah. Okay, they are the CEO of their finances, right? Now, if I'm the CEO of my own finances, I know the tax code better than most, but I am not going to pretend to be an expert in taxes. So I'm going to hire me a really, really smart CPA, right? Well, what I wound up doing was hiring a whole bunch of CPAs to work for me here, because I found out that my clients, the CPAs weren't doing, that their CPAs that they were working with weren't really doing the forward-looking tax mitigation strategies that I knew were available. And so people need to get out of this mindset that this is something that I can do on my own, that I don't need the support of others, whether it's in their personal finances, whether it's in even your physical fitness, right? Your example of Patrick Mahomes, it's okay to seek out those experts and to hire people that are smarter than you. Not a lot of people are willing to do that because they think that there is a risk, right? I know situations where people have come in and talked to me and they're like, I was scared to come in and talk to you. Why? Because I didn't want to admit that I didn't know everything to my wife, right? Because I want to put on that air of confidence. Well, you know, it's better to admit that you don't know everything and find somebody
knows
that
it anyway.
Well, yeah, and you know what? Take it. Even when I came in, you know, we've had a lot of help over the years, but sitting down with somebody, that's how you do learn. So when you do leave, you are smarter than when you came in.
Absolutely.
You know, when I left that meeting, I was sitting there going, well, man, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. You know, it seems obvious once you know it, but so does everything, right?
Yeah.
And having people like you out there that are willing to sit down and talk and not make anybody feel dumb or bad, even if they, you know, no matter where they're at on that spectrum, is invaluable. Like, we all need that.
Yeah, I always say that I want my clients to be smarter than the average financial advisor, right? Now, some people might say that that's not very difficult to get them to be, right? But the truth is, the more educated I can get my clients and my prospective clients to be, the easier it is for me to communicate with them, right?
Right.
And the more protection they'll have against what I call the predators that are out there that are, you know, just trying to sell a product or earn a commission or something like that. You need that. It's counsel, right? It's not. You don't need a financial advisor that's a salesperson. You need somebody that's a counselor, somebody that looks at your entire picture. And you do the same thing with your businesses.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
This has been a ton of fun, guys. We've been going for an hour now, so it doesn't seem like it. But
No, that just flew by.
yeah. So great stories from both of you. Fascinating, and I don't see either one of you slowing down anytime soon.
No,
I hope
think we're gonna
not.
Stop.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time, especially
having
during
us.
No, it was very
during the
enjoyable.
COVID thing to come in here and
We'll be ready to come back mask free soon.
do
I
it.
hope so.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks,
again.
guys.
Later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A pleasure.
Well, I don't know about everybody listening, but I thought that was a ton of fun. I want to encourage you guys to check out what is going on at Seventh Heaven, Jan Fitchman's business. And I also want you to check out what's going on at Lifted Logic. That's Adam's business. And these two guys, if you couldn't tell, are still very, very excited about what they do, even though they are financially independent. Pay close attention to what we're talking about, though, because the reality is that they both failed multiple times. They both had a lot of successes. It's the same thing in our everyday life. Let us help you. Let us be your partner at Barber Financial Group to help you think through the decisions and to help you set that vision for yourself utilizing our guided retirement system.
Investment advisory services offered through Barber Financial Group, an SEC-registered investment advisor.